Okay, I didn't rush my tier list on day 1 of Season 3 because I didn't want to just speculate. I wanted to actually play this patch for a week. And honestly, this is one of the best balance patches I've played in a long time. Almost everything is viable, so I'm going to split this tier list into 2. One for 99% of the player base, so bronze to masters, and the other is for GM and top 500 for the last 1% of players. You'll notice in the high level tier list that there is no S tier because I actually believe there isn't one for now. I have seen the healthiest mix of every hero this season, and let me be clear, the difference between each tier is not as big as it may seem, and somebody out there has one tricked your hero to top 500, so at the end of the day, this is just my opinion. Play what you want, and let's begin. I think D.Va is good in B tier for the metal ranks and everybody else because a simple matrix button that just eats a ton of damage along with vertical mobility is incredibly versatile. Some of the other tanks that are rated higher in this tier list we'll get to later on may struggle with verticality on some maps, and that's where she can shine. In top 500, she's still a solid B tier for the same reasons as before, and she hasn't received any changes since that small tweak in Season 1. Some buffs or nerfs to the other tanks might actually indirectly buff her up a tier. Doomfist goes into C tier for the majority of players. There was a bit of overreaction early in Season 2 after they nerfed the Giga Doom again, but after a slight adjustment period, he's restabilized and is not bad by the definition of my list here. In top 500, however, Doom is actually picked on a lot of maps with environmental kill potential like Lijiang, and Doom mains at this level are so efficient with his dive and movement and can create so much space. He's one of the highest skill ceiling heroes in the game, and players at this rank are able to push that ceiling and dominate lobbies, especially with Hog and Orisa receiving nerfs in late Season 2, which were good matchups against Doom, and that will indirectly bring Doom back up to A tier here. KarQ gets a small bump to B tier in the metal ranks and C tier in top 500. In the metal ranks, singular target focus isn't the best, and she just ends up surviving and drags on fights, especially with all these buffs since mid-season 2 with that extra HP, that carnage cooldown thing, the bleed healing is better, etc, etc. In top 500, KarQ is seeing a bit more playtime, and she used to be D tier, I think, in most people's lists, and is now C, probably bordering B in my opinion, because she can absolutely dominate in the right comp. Like, I've seen some Lucio Brig support lineups with KarQ to enable her, which is similar to the Jotes meta in the Overwatch League late last year. That being said, KarQ is much easier to shut down at this level, with stronger counterpicks to stop the healing like Ana, and good Kirikos here are a bit wiser and they hold onto the Suzu correctly against KarQ's bleeds and her ultimate. Orisa is still strong in the A tier in the metal ranks, but gets knocked down a peg to C tier in top 500. Finally, she's no longer the S tier dominant tank as she once was. So for the majority of players, she's still hard to kill despite the Fortify HP nerf, so she still survives and can hold space forever. But in top 500 now, the reason why I put her down to C tier, where she's not bad, is because of the rise of the other tanks and the recent Season 3 nerf. On the surface, it doesn't look like much, but this really affected how Orisa used to convert medium range kills with a spear into the follow-up primary fire. For example, this was from the old patch, and if you try this exact same play again, this Ana will probably just nade herself and walk away into cover. Ramattra is strong, A tier for both ratings. He's the latest addition of the hero roster, and people are still learning how to play him, but they're actually getting better and better each day. Ramattra's ult duration may have been cut to 20 seconds instead of that indefinite timer for the Season 3 nerf, but that's actually plenty of time to finish a team fight. It's almost no difference. He's one of the best tanks to play because he does well into many matchups with incredible versatility, because he can just turtle by blocking a nemesis and then he pops his ult and he blocks again, or he can turn on the DPS jets and just go to town with the punches, and with that infinite chase with that increased movement speed, he doesn't actually require Lucio to be good. So that opens up a wide range of flexible support options to make Ramattra really good and versatile. Ryan received like 3 buffs in Season 3, and I firmly believe he's S tier in the metal ranks and can just dominate any map that has a central objective to fight on, like most control maps. For example, he's really good on that new map, Antarctic Peninsula, and the push game mode. The Fire Strike change allowing him to 2-tap is also great, and he can hold his shield forever against certain support lineups like the popular Kiriko Mercy. That Ryan shield is not going down. Now, Rein is also at the top of the top 500 tier list in A tier, with a lot more Baptiste pairings with him, with Window Firestrike winning team fights with picks you couldn't get before this season, and for the same reasons I mentioned in the other tier list. He's a bit more reliant on Lucio in top 500 to really dominate, because enemies can respect his swing range and can poke him or kite him out, but still, he's a great choice this season. Roadhog's nerfs bring him down from S tier in the previous season tier lists, but he's still good for the majority of players and not bad for the high-end players. Yes, losing his one-shot is tough, especially when the enemy comes at full HP, but he still has a nasty burst at close range, so it's just a slight adjustment period. Whether that's shooting first, then hooking them the follow-up shot, or taking that extra step closer before firing, which is a little bit more matchup dependent. And you have to remember, Hook is still a strong CC ability with positional displacement, so having a teammate follow up even with a slight bit of damage makes Hog pretty decent, I would say. Although he loses that potential one-shot to 200 HP heroes, he does have extra ammo, a slightly faster firing attack speed tempo, and he's got an extra 2 seconds on his whole Hog this season. That was the buff they gave him, which arguably makes him better when 1v1ing tanks specifically. So now saving that hook for the Wrecking Ball running around, or the Doomfist or the Winston, is pretty viable. Plus, Orisa got nerfed this season, right? Which was one of the harder matchups for him last season. Sigma is one of the better tanks in the game, strong for both the majority and top 100 players in the A tier. The Rock plus Primary Fire combo is a guaranteed kill on a 200 HP hero, provided he doesn't get hard pocketed, and his shield stays healthy in a ton of matchups, and he's honestly really strong on a few maps like Circuit Royale, Junkrat Town, and Havana. Don't know what else to say except Sig is just good. He just really is. Winston goes into the B tier for the majority of players and into the not bad C tier in top 500, at least in North America. It requires a bit more resources as a dive tank when compared to Ball or Doomfist, who have instant engage and disengage tools, whereas Winston has to commit to a dive or a jump and then have to wait for his next leap, or hopefully he has primal before he does something silly like that. Now, that being said, I think he's actually in a good spot, and his placement in a tier list is really dependent on how the other tanks are, and if Ball or Doom get touched, like Winston can easily be bumped back into S or A tier again, and I think he's one of the most popular tanks in Asia, so there's that. Wrecking Ball is the hottest thing in town now, going all the way from D tier in all of Season 1 and 2 to now A tier for everybody. I don't have him in S tier for the metal ranks and everybody else, because I actually feel like balls at these levels may overstay their welcome. They kind of just roll around and do nothing for a little longer than they probably should. And too much downtime and the risk of messing up their pile drive timing can kind of slow down his overall effectiveness. However, he is much more forgiving now with that extra shield health, and his mines are stupid easy with the 1 second detonation buff. In top 500, good ball players never even die that much to begin with, because they always knew how to disengage and re-engage when things got a little dicey, but his downtime between that is actually a lot shorter because of that shield HP, and it makes up for a big difference. So he actually uses up less healing resources from their supports on the team. And since high-level balls know how to wall jump and do cool techs, they can actually pile drive on command, and that shorter cooldown for the pile drive is really noticeable for them. He's a high skill ceiling hero, so players at this level who cap out and learn disgusting ball tech are absolutely rolling ranked lobbies right now. And you gotta remember that Orisa and Hog got nerfed. Those were tough matchups for ball before, not so much right now. Zarya is going into C tier for the majority of players. Not bad. And in top 500, she's a bit more niche. The bubble duration nerfs were not as significant for the majority of players because their bubble usage wasn't that optimal to begin with, and at the high level, you can certainly feel it, but I actually think she's still fine. Niche, but playable by definition of the tier list. Some of her better matchups aren't popular in the meta right now, which is why I put her in the C tier. Like, she plays decently well into Orisa and Roadhog, which were two tanks that received nerfs, so yeah. Ashe is strong for most players, and is still good, but slightly knocked down a peg in B tier for top 500 players. Dynamite is always a reliable ability, and Bob, acting like a sixth player, contests objectives and can zone enemies. Now, the reason why Ashe is A tier for most players is for two reasons. One, Mercy is everywhere at these ranks, and damage boost pocketing Ashe for headshot breakpoints is always welcomed. And two, Ball and Doomfist have high skill ceilings, like I said earlier, and they're not as efficient in diving and contesting Ashe because tank players here may not realize that the win condition is to just simply jump the Ashe every time, because the Coach Gun isn't actually the best escape ability. So in top 500 for similar reasons, Ball and Doomfist everywhere makes it harder to play Ashe because they actually can jump her effectively, and the DPSs later in the list are a reason why I keep her here, which we'll get to after, and those other heroes are just a cut above. Bastion is A tier for most players. You heard it here first. I finally realized how stupidly strong this hero is right now while he's in the not bad category in top 500. Arguably good in B tier too, depending on the matchup. Now, Bastion has quite literally only received buffs since season 1 and absolutely melts if left unchecked. Rein Shield, no problem. Wrecking Ball, Doom, Ramattra, see you later. Natural cover and smarter disengagements in top 500 hold Bastion back a little, with that high-level tank players actually timing and waiting out Bastion transformation and can actually execute a meaningful play within that time frame with good focus. But in the metal ranks where fights drag on forever, Bastion is an easy answer with high output DPS to solve the long team fight issue. It can actually convert kills pretty easily. Cassidy received a massive buff, which on paper doesn't look like much. Fall off range is increasing. I firmly believe that this puts him into S tier for most players, and the highest tier in the top 500 on my list, which is A tier. So, this fall off range means his TTK, the time to kill, is significantly reduced at mid to long range. Fellow content creator Wanted demonstrated it in his video like this. Think about it this way, how many times have you landed like 3 or 4 shots into an enemy at long range where they're probably one more shot from dying, but then you miss the last 1 or 2, then you get stuck in that reload? It happens a lot more than you think. And now with this buff, ensuring a target is actually dead within 3 shots or a single headshot and body shot, plus the free 130 damage from magnetic grenade at close range, it's just so good right now. He's so good. Echo is a good hero in B tier for the metal ranks. It's just a shame she's not more popular because she's quite difficult to master. At the high end, same thing, B tier, and is a good option, and you actually end up seeing a lot more Echoes here since she's actually really good into a lot of the meta tanks who can't contest her consistently. The hit scan buff to Cass and good Widowmakers here can hold her at bay, but good Echo players can generate so much value with consistent assassinations with that sticky bomb into beam combo. Genji is just a running meme at this point. Better nerf Genji is spammed everywhere in YouTube comments and TikTok. I don't want to see a single one in this video. Anyways, C tier for everyone, D tier for top 500 where it's mostly just niche one-tricks who are playing him right now. He received 2 nerfs plus the loss of the DPS passive with move speed from season 1. However, to be completely honest, I actually don't think he's as terrible as people make him out to be and is actually decently viable with the Winston Doom or Ball Dive comp. Plus, you can date him right now. This might be a hot take, but I think Hanzo is not bad, but not like good, so comfortably C tier for both lists. For the metal ranks, he's not bad because storm arrows are great into spamming all the Rein players' shields and with the random log headshots. However, consistency is an issue with projectile heroes. I don't know a single gold Hanzo main who is consistently hitting everything every game. And that could be a reason why they're stuck in gold. Like, they can pop off and then people will go, oh my god, Hanzo is so OP. But in the next game, that same Hanzo just can't hit anything. At the high levels, I rated Hanzo higher last season because Dragon Strike was a great counter to Kitsune Rush, but Wrecking Ball right now running around can make Hanzo's life a living hell. Even Doomfist as well. When they recognize the Hanzo's popping, all they have to do is adjust their target focus. So I find that he can be shut down by the current meta tanks, which is why I placed him here. Junkrat received what I thought was a minor nerf with that mind damage doing 20 less. You can still one-shot, but the consistency is a lot more noticeable now that the patch has marinated for a week. I still think he's A tier and good for most players because that spam rat style and getting random kills, and everyone being allergic to that Riptire almost gives Junkrat free kills every time he has it available. At the highest level, I think he's still good, down a tier maybe into B, but you better pray that flank primary plus mind combo hits. Also, his trap is really nice against Wrecking Ball if they're not paying attention, so there's that. I think I've underrated Mei for too long. Like, she's actually a solid A tier hero in the metal ranks. Wall is annoying as hell for all the Rein players and immobile tanks like Ram, Orisa, Sig, and everyone tends to panic here and they never shoot the wall, so they just get caught out and die. At the high ranks, I actually think she's a little more niche, right? A few one-tricks and Mei mains will play her, and she's rarely like the flex hero that people go to as an answer for anything, so players know not to get too close to her here for that freeze beam DPS, and they're more aware of that wall, so they kind of play around it. That means the onus is actually on the Mei players at this level to hit the icicle projectile, which isn't super consistent, but still. Niche means she's still playable, and you can still get a ton of value on her if played in the right comp. Okay, for Pharah, hit scans like Cassidy and Soldier got buffed, so I think for the majority of players on this tier list, she'll play similar to Echo and sit in B tier. She's good. That being said, I think Pharah should only be played with a Mercy pocket. Without one, she gets knocked down a tier. And right now, Mercy is played everywhere in most ranks, and she has higher healing if the target is below half health. So if you heal a Pharah and she gets dinged a few times by that Cassidy, it's all good. She's gonna heal back to full, so you have to consider that. For top 500, I don't know. I don't see Pharah apart from players who already mained her before. So it feels like if anybody wants to go a flying hero with the Mercy pocket, it's usually Echo. Then you have to consider not only the buffed hit scans like Cass and Soldier, but also dominant Widow players in top 500. They're insane. So that's why I have her in D tier at this time. Reaper is strong. Always has been and will continue to be in A tier for most players. Reaper's hard to kill with that big HP pool at 250, lifesteal, and a get out of jail free card with Wraith form, so why not? He's a beast of a tank buster and can actually 1v1 most heroes if he gets close, especially with a special move from the side. In top 500, however, I think Reaper is knocked down a peg in C tier, a couple pegs actually, for ranked ladder specifically, because people are a lot more hyper aware of that flanky style, so he has to generally play close and tank bust. Since he doesn't fit every comp, he's not bad, but remember, by this definition, he's still good in the right hands, like with Ryan or Ramattra, Lucio rushdown comps. He will actually thrive in coordinated teams. Sojourn, nerf after nerf, and with Mercy still being really good despite Mercy's nerfs, like damage boost is still there, it still exists, and Sojourn is still really good as a result. And she's at the highest tier in A for top 500, but I actually want to say she's B tier for everybody else. I actually think that spread on her SMG hurt her spammy style at this elo, since players are not as consistent with the rail headshots, and you can't rely on Mercy's actually recognizing when you're high charger Sojourn and looking for a rail. Like, I've seen some Silver Mercy gameplay VODs and not enough of them are damage boosting, and let alone damage boosting at the right time, to be honest. So you're not going to be elevating that Sojourn's headshot rail consistently, and the headshot rails aren't consistently happening to begin with. I actually feel like you can get more value with other DPS heroes at these ratings. That being said, there is nuance here, and I think this tier list is an extreme generalization, so probably she starts getting pushed back to A tier once you're like high plat diamond masters, where Sojourns are actually hitting their shots pretty well. I actually think a lot of plat players are really gifted mechanically. It's just their decision making kind of holds them back, but that's a discussion for another day. Okay, soldier buffs were actually really nice. That recoil control was tough for some players, and they both reduced it by 12%, and they made it longer before it actually kicked in, which is really noticeable at longer ranges. I think soldier is actually S tier for most players. He's reliable, he's consistent hit scan damage, he has self-heal, can sprint away, and he can reposition. In top 500, he's knocked down a peg. Like, he's good, but I wouldn't say extremely strong, but solid in B tier for the same reasons, though recoil control wasn't too big of an issue previously, since good soldier or hit scan players knew how to control their recoil well anyways. But right now, because Doom and Ball are really popular at these elos, soldier will kind of just melt if he gets jumped really quickly, especially when comboed with like a Tracer or any other dive hero with the ball jump, so that's why I kept him at B tier. Oh, Sombra. While she did receive some buffs in Season 3, which are nice and all, and she plays well against Doom and Ball, I find it hard to put her above being a niche hero. She's still playable though, especially in those situations I just mentioned, but she falls behind otherwise. Good players in the high end can make her work in more scenarios, but I find a lot of metal rank players lose so much tempo for their team by running around invisible and not making meaningful space or meaningful hacks. There's too much downtime here for not enough reward. This is just my take. Maybe some Sombra players are starting to dominate in lower elos. I'll still have to see. It's still only been a week. Symmetra received a tiny nerf with the ult charge rate for her ultimate, but other than that, she's the same as before. Strong in A tier for the majority of players because everyone's allergic to shooting her sentry turrets, and she's B tier in top 500. I think in top 500, if you're a sim one trick, she's actually like A tier. Like good Symmetra players are like really good, and you can argue she's an easy hero to play with a low floor, but her ceiling is actually higher than people give her credit for, I will say that. Knowing how to set up properly, when to TP deep, whether to TP bomb or set up and reposition with the turret dynamically based on the context of the fight, etc, etc. The list goes on. There's a lot to consider, and you can definitely tell an amateur sim player and a really good sim player. Torb plays himself. I say this every time. If you can't hit anything, just play this damn hero, because that turret is a free hero on its own, and no one shoots it in most ranks. So he's A tier for most players and C tier for top 500. He's usually the, I don't know what to play, I'm just gonna pick Torb. I'm playing bad in the first half, pick Torb. His ultimate is game changing. He doesn't die that often when he presses overload, so it all depends on whether that turret is set up in a good spot and you can hit those Cheetos. Tracer is an interesting one. I don't think I can ever rate her above B tier in the most players tier list after watching a few gold and plat Tracer VODs recently. She's good, but no. Players are really far from being consistently effective on her with subpar tracking. They shoot out of her effective range, they have unrefined movement, and they actually die way more than they probably should for such a slippery hero with a small hitbox. And for those opposite reasons, Tracer is in the highest tier at A tier and meta actually in top 500 because of great tracking, great movement, doesn't die, huge pest for backlines when coordinated with Ball or Doomfist. Good luck living against really, really good Tracer players at this level. Widowmaker is C tier in the metal ranks, and I will die on this hill. I think if you're a good Widow and consistently hitting shots, you actually wouldn't be in the metal ranks anymore. This is quite literally the point and click hero. If you can't hit your shots, you just do nothing. Plus you fall over now at 175 HP again after that HP nerf, so you really have to play out of immediate dive range and hit those shots. So, in top 500 though, Widowmaker and one-shots are still too good here, and she is really strong in the hands of a good player. That being said, Ball, after these buffs, is a good hero to make her life miserable. She's not playing too far away, so I actually have to keep an eye on this for the next few weeks. But so far, in the 100 plus games I've played this past week for Season 3, Widow is still dominating lobbies in top 500. Alright, on to supports. Ana, strong hero in the metal ranks, same in top 500, A tier. This is going to be one of the many supports at this tier because so many of them are actually good right now. Ana's sleep is deadly if you can land it onto the Dooms and Balls, and Anti can really mess up the Ramattra, for example, or anyone really. And that buff to her damage from 70 to 75 per shot helps fight off Tracers so much more effectively now. Ana's a great choice because that nano combo, and she's quite flexible in a support pair. She can be paired with Kiriko, paired with Mercy, paired with Brig. I've seen it with Lucio. The list goes on. Baptiste is honestly strong in the A tier at all levels, and I think he's severely underrated by the community right now. People got so used to Kiriko Suzu in Season 1 and 2, they forgot how annoying Baptiste's immortality is. It's equally as annoying to play against, and instant regen burst healing can counteract Ball's pile drive DPS, right? Ball plus pile drive, that's 100 DPS straight in the center. Everyone gets tagged to 100. All 200 HP heroes are down at half. Regen burst will heal 100 instantly, plus like 50 over time. That is really, really annoying to burn through. Plus, his ultimate is deadly with Rein's Fire Strike combo. Since that got buffed, it's a one-shot now, right? At that breakpoint. He can also hop out of danger with vertical mobility. And he's just does so much DPS. I play a ton of Baptiste right now, so this is probably a little bit more personal bias. But seriously, I really love playing it with Rein for the same reasons I mentioned before. And he pumps out so much DPS. Seriously, once you know how to weave in DPS plus healing APM, you can mark the enemy Ball and pressure him down significantly. You can pressure Rein's shield, Sigma's shield, Winston bubble, unlike Kiriko and Mercy, which was really popular late last season. You can also avoid Doom's Seismic Slam, who's running around right now, and it's just a good answer to so many of the tanks. Brig is back. These recent buffs with the instant 25 HP on impact with the repair pack is really good. It always felt bad in previous seasons to pre-heal pack someone in case they took damage, then you have to wait that slow healing HP over 2 seconds. Like with this change, plus the lower cost for Rally, her ultimate, you can prevent so many extra deaths on your team, which can translate to more impact on this hero and thus a higher win rate. I'm going to put her in A tier for the metal ranks, but B tier in top 500, still good, still good. Brig's passive Inspire plus a heal pack on somebody can keep somebody alive for so long, and it really makes life difficult for the Tracer Balls and Doomfist trying to focus down and burst a hero really quickly. Plus you can whip shot and boop him away non-stop. she's actually quite good into a few of the dive matchups right now, but she's a little situational. Her weakness is range, and if the enemy isn't diving or coming into you, and the enemy team is playing a slow Sigma poke comp, there's not much you can do as Brig except sit there and just maybe try to throw out your whip shot sometimes. So she's a bit more situational, but still good in B tier. Okay, I'm gonna put Kiriko in B tier for most players from Bronze and Masters, but still strong in A tier in top 500. I've seen a lot of metal rank Kiriko gameplay. Their kunai headshot consistency, not great, but that's okay. So I was hoping after watching that the healing and the Kitsune rushes would be good, but not so much. Now, her healing is easy in theory because all you have to do is have a reasonable tracking to ensure the papers are yellow, and then they'll do the job for you and seek them. But honestly, they're not. There's so many wasted blue papers I'm seeing. People keep thinking that you have to lead the projectiles onto moving targets. Stop. Pretend your healing is like a Zarya beam or your soldier or your Sombra. Track the target as best as you can with their movement. If they jump around like this, follow them. And then you'll be a bit more effective. Players in these metal ranks are actually not even weaving in the 2 free kunais you get in between each full healing Ofuda cycle. And they hold on to Kitsune Rush till Overwatch 3, which is one of the biggest reasons why she's good in top 500. So, to elaborate on that, at the highest levels, Kitsune Rush, again, is one of the best ults in the game. It's a game-winning ultimate. And it's like, think about it. Movement speed, cooldown reduction, attack speed for your whole team. It's a giga buff. And good Kirikos here will have great healing output, weave in kunais, and they can actually build the Kitsune Rush at a good pace, and they won't hold on to it forever. As soon as they get it, it's go, go, go. Use it, win the team fight, and have good tempo. Don't get me wrong, Kiriko is still good in metal ranks, right? You can't go wrong with Suzu and good survivability with the Swift Step, but honestly, I really think she gets outvalued too much for me to justify her any higher than B tier at this level. Okay, Lucio might be the hottest take of this tier list, but I genuinely think he's C tier for metal rank players specifically. And as you climb up the ladder, he goes up, and he goes all the way back into A tier, into the strong category for the high-end players. So hear me out. Lucio's aura is okay, but if we wanted a healing aura, I think Briggs is pretty much the same, right? Lucio's is at 16 HP per second, Briggs is at 15 HP. Now, the argument has always been that Lucio's speed boost is what makes him strong, which is true. However, can you honestly tell me that your average silver Lucio is engaging or disengaging with the team consistently well, like knowing the proper timing and what constitutes when to engage, and if everybody on the team is on the same page to both engage and disengage? Are the wall ride mechanics of your average Lucio player flawless, or at least fluid? Are the players still playing Flucio, aka Floor Lucio? I've seen a decent amount of metal rank Lucio VODs, and I'll be honest, I'm not impressed, and I really think you can get better value out of other support heroes at these ranks, especially in solo queue. Now, if you're 5 stacked and ranked and you're metal rank or whatever, just playing with friends and everyone's on the same page and they're communicating, having a good time, I think he's fine. Like, he's good then. So, bringing this discussion back into that top 500 level, this is where Lucio will shine, right? Coordinating with the Rein or the Ramattra or anybody else, or they can convert and play the solo queue Reddit Lucio style, which really works, where they just assassinate enemy widows and they come back. Like, Lucio is really good in the hands of a good player and is why he's a staple in a ton of Overwatch League comps. Good Lucio players also know how to properly boop peel with proper timing. This is the underrated skill, I think. I watched a VOD of an Owl Lucio just perfectly annoying the enemy Reaper at the perfect time, every time. It was honestly such a treat to watch. Okay, the Mercy community is something else, man. There was a lot of overreaction. Yes, I said it, overreaction to the changes that they brought forth in Season 3 for Mercy. But don't worry, I'm not specifically calling out the Mercy community. Literally any hero main community in Overwatch tends to be loud and reactive, like Doomfist or Genji mains, but I digress. Mercy is still S tier in the metal ranks, and at the top of the charts in A tier in top 500. I won't talk about her being more or less fun, because I know having the GA movement cooldown nerf sucks and is clunky when timed with the beam 1.3 second disconnection or whatever. But I actually think players got too used to the fast GA and used it more than they actually needed to use it. If that makes any sense. They would just spam the fly and the bounce back, fly and the bounce back every 1.5 seconds, when honestly they didn't need to do it every time. If that makes more sense now. I kind of just repeated myself, but you know. While this part was nerfed, Mercy's healing was buffed when targets get low, which actually makes it a nightmare to burst pocketed heroes down. It makes, let me think, Winston, for example, really tough for Winston to kill anybody because he deals 60 DPS, and Mercy's healing jumps up to 67.5 HP per second once they get low, as an example. And we all know Winston can multi-Tesla cannon. If Mercy pops Valkyrie, she heals 90 HP per second if they get low. 90 because of her new passive where she heals more. Mercy is also straight up tanky now, right? Because she's going to be healing 25% of her health in a lot of cases, which messes up a lot of breakpoints, right? Ana used to be able to 3-tap her with 75, 75, but if Mercy's just literally healing somebody against 3-tap, even without flying into cover, she'll probably live. She survives now. And you also have to remember damage boost and res didn't get touched at all. Objectively speaking, she's still really good. Like, it just took a slight playstyle adjustment to the slower GA timing, or excuse me, the slightly longer GA cooldown timing, and it's all good. The Doom players adjusted to the weaker block and punch cooldown, and I think the Mercy community can too. And I think they're slowly realizing it too. She's still so good. Moira is interesting because she's undeniably S tier in my opinion for most players on this tier list, since she's just great value. Like, she's Walmart. Great value Walmart. But in top 500, she's still not bad like Whole Foods. For the medal ranks, she's a simple hero that outputs an insane amount of reliable healing. There's no real aim or skill shot required, and she has consistent DPS with the damage boost and the biotic suck, which has like amazing hitbox range. Like, I don't know, it's super forgiving. In top 500, she still gets good value at the highest levels, but that's about it. She has no utility outside of that, and you have to rely on making good positional decisions and target priorities, whether you're actually healing your tanks or genuinely go on a semi or committed flank. Yes, flank. I know it sounds like I'm trolling, but the TikTok flank Moira is actually good to contest widows in some cases and vulnerable enemy backlines. Think about her like a Lucio. Does everybody really flame or get super mad at the flanking Lucios if they do it at the calculated right pace and time and actually convert a kill? I actually think Moira can do the same, because if things get dicey, she fades out. If things get dicey for Lucio, he wall rides back. If you're gonna do this though, you have to make sure you pair Moira with the proper support duo that can cover the raw healing for the rest of the team if they require those resources. The reason why people don't flame Lucio as much when they do is because Lucio is usually paired with a main healer where they have good healing output, so they can offset it while Lucio's off doing weird things. If you're playing Moira Lucio and your Moira's off in the flank, what's your Lucio doing for your, I don't know, your Rein who requires resources? Not much. I think if you're playing Lucio Moira, you should probably play with the Rein to enable him, but it's a story for another day. You get the point that I'm trying to make here. And finally for Zen, I actually think he's strong again right now in A tier for most players, and B tier, arguably A in top 500. I remember early in season 1, he was down at the bottom of every tier list, mostly because of how oppressive like Sombra and Genji were, and Winston was good and D.Va, so Zen just couldn't live. But right now, there are a lot more viable ground-based tanks like Ramattra, Orisa, Rein, Sig, and Zen's Discord is always a valuable tool and welcome tool to keep them at bay. Now, I also want to say Zen is surprisingly good into Ball and Doom if he's protected. Like, if Zen's an isolated target, he's dead meat, but the permanent Discord on Ball, for example, while being protected by a Bap or a Brig, can enable Zen to do so much. He's solid. So make sure if you have a Zen on your team, you need to pay attention, protect him, and he will probably win the game for you with that Discord orb. Okay? I'm looking out for you, Zen mains. I got you. Okay, and that is my Season 3 tier list. Let me know what you guys think. Remember, this is all just an opinion, and come talk to me at twitch.tv/KarQ. We have drops all the time, and I stream all the time playing top 500 support, so see you then.